In this video, I'm going to show you how to make custom sanding sticks like these. I've been using them for sanding the letters of my engravings to a 90-degree angle. By making the sanding sticks ourselves, we're able to customize and match them to all the different shapes we come across when sanding. You can buy sanding sticks on Amazon, but the amount of different shapes are limited. This tapered straight one is great for getting into tight corners. This half circle one is great for sanding the inside of curves. And this flat pointy one is great for getting into tight flat areas. I'll show you how to make a few different ones. Once you know the process, you can get creative and make the shapes that you need for your projects. Let's start with this tapered straight one. I like to use popsicle sticks for most of my sanding sticks. They're just about the right size for my projects. If you need something bigger, then a small paint stirring stick works well. I make the end flat by cutting, sawing, or sanding. Then I taper the end with my small tabletop sander. You can do it with sandpaper as well by just resting it on a flat surface and moving the popsicle stick. It just takes a little bit longer. Tapering the back end of the sanding stick will give it the ability to get into the sharpest angles. When I'm happy with the shape, I cut out a small piece of sandpaper. I use a high quality rough grit sandpaper. We want it to last as long as possible before we have to change it. Then I use some double-sided tape to cover the area where I want the sandpaper. I clean up the excess with a knife, then I remove the cover tape and put on the sandpaper. Press the sandpaper on firmly, making sure it sticks well, and then cut away the excess with a knife. To finish it off, I clean up the edges and sharp corners with some sandpaper. Now we're ready to use it, and as you can see, it is really great for getting into tight corners. It also works great for outside curves. You can use foam padded double-sided tape like this. It works fine, but if you need to get into tight areas, it is not the best, because it adds a lot of thickness to the sanding stick. For inside curves and circles, we need a sanding stick that is curved to match the shape of the letter. I found these half circle shaped sticks at my local craft store that I think will work great for this. Once you have the shape ready, we can prepare the sandpaper. Some sandpapers have a tendency of cracking when you bend them, so we want to use a sandpaper that is a little bit flexible and not too brittle. Then we roll it a couple of times with something round to make it follow the shape better. Then we add the double-sided tape to our stick, cut away the excess, and apply the sandpaper. Now we have a sanding stick that can smoothen the inside of curves well. It is not as effective as sanding the outside of the curves, since we have to hold it at a 90-degree angle to the workpiece, but it does the job. With these curved sanding sticks, the sandpaper has a tendency of not sticking perfectly at the edges, but just pressing it back on again usually works. The great thing about this rounded sanding stick is that when it gets worn out, we can just cut off the worn parts. And now we have a fresh sanding stick again. As the last one, I also want to include this pointy flat sander. This one is great for getting into those tight flat spots where my fingers are too fat to reach. To make this one, we start by sanding our wooden stick to a sharp point. Then we taper one of the sides. Now, instead of attaching the sandpaper on the flat side, like we did with the first one, we're going to attach the sandpaper to the tapered side. This gives us a better angle for working on flat surfaces. And it is a really good shape for cleaning up in sharp corners. But you might have to adjust it slightly depending on your needs. These paint palette knives can also be used as sanding sticks. Just use some double-sided tape and tape some sandpaper to the bottom of them. They work great for those flat surfaces that are hard to reach. And if the sandpaper ever gets clogged up, a good trick to use is to just rub it on the rubber sole of your shoe. This will clean up the sandpaper in no time. And that was it for this video. See you next time.